a couple times this episode. Gonna be joined by Cole Griego, hoping to be able to get in touch with Katie Ramirez. It's a big fight week here locally. Upcoming, we got Legacy Boxing, Battle for the Brave. Don't forget to join me out there Saturday night locally, the Manuel Lujan building on the Expo New Mexico grounds. A great night of boxing, a battle of undefeateds in the main event, a stacked card of local New Mexico boxing action with a ton of prospects on the card. Katie's going to be on the card against Jordan Garcia, and we hope to have Katie here join us. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a hold of her, but holy freaking balls, this weekend we had UFC in New York, in the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden, UFC 217. A huge complaint of a bad year for the UFC. A lot of people saying the cards haven't lived up to the hype. We've had injuries. We've had USADA. People calling it a lackluster year with a lack of stars. Well, GSP to the rescue. Upsets galore. New champions everywhere. George Rush St. Pierre, is he the greatest fighter of all time? That's what we walk away saying after his performance, being able to take down Michael Bisping, control him, outstrike him on the feet, beat him up, catch him with a left hook that sent Bisping down, and then strangling Bisping to sleep. No tap from Bisping, a guy that is tough as nails, annoying as shit, but tough as nails. Even more annoying when after the fight he says, "Oh no, George is a great guy. All my trash talk is just me trying to sell a fight. I don't mean any of it, but I mean every word I say, and I'll fuck you up." Michael Bisping, the paradox of that asshole. But George Rush St. Pierre, the king of pay-per-view, does it for the UFC. George Rush St. Pierre now joins an elite list, one of four men. Conor McGregor, Randy Couture, BJ Penn, and George Rush St. Pierre stand in a room of fighters that have held UFC titles in two different weight classes. Congratulations. And St. Pierre, I was wrong. I thought Bisping was going to win this fight, but St. Pierre did the unthinkable. 4 years of not competing, but being in the gym, he came back better. He really did take all this time and I guess mentally adjust, do what he wanted to do, take his game to another level, to a place that it had not been. We saw much more kicks, much more striking, still the same great reactive takedowns. That threat of the takedown paralyzed Bisping. George Rush St. Pierre is one of the greatest of all time. Now, when you think of the greatest of all time, you're going to throw in names like Fedor Emelianenko. Well, we really don't know what was going on in Pride. Come on. Was there even drug testing? And then you got Anderson Silva. Well, that's been really disputed by now. John Jones, that's far off the train tracks. But George Rush St. Pierre has seemed to have put himself in a caliber of his own. The only guy touching this level is Demetrius Mighty Mouth Johnson. At this point, both men are on 13-fight win streaks. DJ, you may knock some of the competition of what he's defended the title against, but think about the caliber of guys that GSP was fighting early on in his career, and would we really look at some of those challenges in the same way that we looked at them back then with the way the game has evolved to nowadays? Also, we can't forget that even though there's talk of would Mighty Mouse move up to 35, he's been there, he's done that. He earned a UFC title shot at that weight class, losing to Dominic Cruz, but still a 4-fight win streak at 135 pounds in the WEC UFC level. A 10-0 start to his career at 135 pounds because a lot of people weren't doing a 125-pound weight class. So there is a comparison to make, even though, yes, George Rush St. Pierre moved up 15 pounds to win this fight against Michael Bisping. A fight, though, remember, a 5-fight win streak. But did Bisping really beat Talis Latis? That fight was really close. Did Anderson Silva knock out Bisping? I'll tell you, he did. A close decision win over Dan Henderson. A really disputed 5-fight win streak. Now I'm regretting, obviously, and bring up all the hindsight bad points of the prediction of Bisping winning. But this win would have pushed Bisping to being one of the greatest of all time. A loss against a very good middleweight in what is a very characterized division right now. Luke Rockhold, bar injuries, could have been that revelation after what we saw him do to Chris Weidman. But Michael Bisping capitalized on a cocky champion, and cocky champions like a Michael Bisping seem to be getting their servings as of late. Georges St-Pierre, a great game plan, capitalized, as he said, on the patterns that Michael Bisping lays. A beautiful finish. The first finish that we've seen from Georges St-Pierre, and you got to date it all the way back to, I believe, January of 2009, stopping BJ Penn at UFC 94. A TKO corner stoppage. A stoppage during a fight, you got to go all the way back to the TKO of Matt Serra, April 2008 of UFC 83. I mean, that just the exclamation point that it puts on the performance that Georges St-Pierre had on Saturday night. Just incredible, amazing, just breathtaking. That was a display from a martial artist that will stay with the people that watch it for a long, long time. You also had TJ Dillashaw back in possession of the UFC Bantamweight title. Cody Garbrandt hit, dropped, and hurt Dillashaw at the end of the first round. A round that I thought Dillashaw was winning. He looked to be the faster. It looked to be a different range than the Cruz fight, and Garbrandt was not having as much success. The speed seemed to be in Dillashaw's favor, kind of surprising me. Dillashaw almost finished, but survives, makes it to the second round. An ability to recover that is remarkable. I marvel at the way that Dillashaw recovered in that minute, and while recovering from what obviously looked like to be hurt from a heavy punch, was able to take and cognizantly remember and implement the directions from cornerman to Wayne Bang Ludwig about not to be scared to use his kicks. He didn't have to set them up as much because we knew that Garbrandt would not be looking for the takedown that he wanted to knock off Dillashaw's head. Misjudging a kick that he thought was going to the body, went to the head. Dillashaw lands with the head kick, starts off the bad news for Cody Garbrandt. Garbrandt, so tough, gets back up. They're exchanging in the pocket. The big hook, and that's the oh shit. Dillashaw able to get that side wrestler position, pounds out Garbrandt. The epic photo of the two of them yelling at each other after the fight. Respect for the win because they're competitors, but obviously the heated rivalry between these two studs is not over in any sort of way. What's next? I was just talking about Demetrius Johnson. That's what TJ Dillashaw wanted. That's what the UFC wanted to make previously. They let him have the Ray Borg fight. I believe that the UFC's mind, they've done enough favors to Mighty Mouse, to Demetrius Johnson, to justify making the TJ Dillashaw fight. This is still going to go down to Melky Kawa, Dana White, contract negotiations, and there's still a possibility that the Henry Cejudo Sergio Pettis winner gets that fight with Demetrius Johnson. If that was to happen, you would then look for the UFC to gulp and put TJ Dillashaw possibly against Dominic Cruz or against Jimmy Rivera, the winner of that fight that's coming up. But I have to believe that the UFC wants to make Dillashaw Johnson, and at this point, that would be at 125. First time going down there, you don't know how Dillashaw's body is going to react. I got to go with the champion, Demetrius Johnson, as the favorite and my pick to win that fight. But anything could happen. Dillashaw would obviously be the closest betting underdog against Johnson. It's no disrespect. It's more of an attribute calling Dillashaw the underdog of Johnson's greatness. We also had another world title fight, and the biggest upset of the night. We had upsets all across the board, but the biggest one of them comes in the form of Thug Rose connecting with a huge left hook, dropping and stopping Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Joanna didn't tap. It appears that she did tap. Very concussed from those shots. The way that the fight was finished was in a spectacular fashion that left your mouth going, did we really just see that? Nobody expected to see the speed advantage, the offline striking of Thug Rose Namajunas, just destroying, the speed advantage being that big of a gap, and Rose Namajunas is taking advantage of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Nobody could believe it, but it happened. Thug Rose with the huge win, the post-fight comments of just be a good person, the most level-headed fighter in all of MMA, or at least the fighter in MMA that's the most level-headed and allows us to see it. You want a humble champion? Don't forget Demetrius Johnson, but I'm always happy to see more of them. Congratulations to Rose Namajunas. That was ultra impressive, and it would seem to lead to a fight with Jessica Andrade. Joanna Jędrzejczyk would like a rematch. Dana White, obviously, with Joanna trying to attempt to tie Ronda Rousey's record with what she's done for the promotion and for the division, he's possibly aboard. But Rose Namajunas made a very strong point of her own in pointing out that we saw Joanna tap. Joanna tapped to strikes. She was in a position where she could have kept fighting, could have got up, but blatantly you can see she's tapping on the camera. They called it a knockout, but I believe it was a submission. I am kind of in favor of no rematch, one fight, and then probably a rematch. I'd say the number one contender, if you're putting a challenger in front of Rose before Joanna, it's definitely Jessica Andrade with what she did against Claudia Gadelha. That is just the end of it. You have a couple other big fights coming up, I believe, where you're going to see Tecia Torres versus Michelle Waterson. You have Cynthia Calvillo coming up in a huge fight. I believe that somewhere in the mix of those winners, you drop in Joanna Jędrzejczyk, you give her an opportunity to jump right back in the mix. Maybe even Joanna just chooses to move up to 125. Oh yeah, quick spoiler before I get too far off base on this, but the UFC has ridiculously, foolishly announced that Paige Van Zandt will get the first female flyweight title shot after they crown the champion from this season of Tough. Jaw-dropping, inexplicably ridiculous, ludicrous, proof of just wanting to make a star power imminent, and using marketing as a ploy to put a belt around somebody, possibly, or giving them the greatest opportunity. Oh yeah, all those thoughts are coming out of everybody's mouth. They are totally justified, especially when you're concerning yourself talking about a fighter that's 1-2 in the promotion, had 6 ailments that limited her from making this 125-pound debut, and if she would have been able to make that debut against Jessica I, which that fight should be rebooked, there would be a good case for Van Zandt as the number one contender, as I was the number one ranked 125-pound woman before entering the octagon. But nonetheless, the UFC didn't go with the logical route. They're going with giving just Paige Van Zandt a title shot, which doesn't make sense. Blah. That rant came out of nowhere. And that all started off with thinking about Joanna possibly moving up to 125. Does she want a rematch? Talking about rematches. Cody Garbrandt, he wants a rematch against TJ Dillashaw. The UFC obviously wants to put TJ against DJ. Cody You hadn't defended the title. Yes, it was impressive what you did against Dominic, but you had the injuries. You did lose. You almost won, but you did lose. I don't think there's much argument to stand on at this point. I think you have to win a couple and come back, especially when you're looking at the UFC is already giving Dominic Cruz the opportunity, and if not him, Jimmy Rivera definitely deserves the title shot if he is able to knock off Dominic Cruz. So a couple steps back for Cody Garbrandt in a young, hungry bantamweight division. Michael Bisping, no, you also got finished. You talked a lot of trash. This was the big money fight. I was actually quite surprised that Michael Bisping did not retire following this fight. Bisping will be back in the mix. Possibly a fight with Lyoto Machida. If Lyoto Machida sticks around, maybe that's the way you go. Also on the main card, you saw Stephen Wonderboy Thompson get back in the win column. Unanimous decision win over Jorge Masvidal. Wonderboy did what he does. Darren Till called him out. If Wonderboy's hand isn't broke, let's make that fight. Paulo Acosta, bigger, younger, faster. Great technique, but great power. Thunder, lightning, composure. Took out Johnny Hendricks. Hendricks, please find a way to get back down to 170. James Vick, great boxing as always. The great finish of Joseph Duffy. The now level that everybody categorizes your striking as has went up a couple notches. James Vick is a sick prospect. James Vick, Kevin Lee, a big possibility for that 155-pound division, even though they probably both be much better suited off in a 165-pound division. Do we want to start talking about controversy? Controversy! This event was in New York. And once you get away from the greatness was that pay-per-view, and we get into the prelims. There are highlights, there are finishes, and there is the normal controversy that comes with the infantile New York Athletic Commission. We first off have the Mark Godbeer defeats Walt Harris by disqualification due to Harris illegally striking while the ref called timeout and physically was trying to separate the two of them. In the clinch, Walt Harris already dominating this fight. They're in the end of the first round. They're in the clinch position. Harris obviously knees Godbeer in the groin. Not many guys have I ever seen have continued to violently attack their opponent when they have kneed him in the groin. There is a cup there. It is hard. You know when your knee hits something hard in the lower extremity, most likely the referee is going to break the action because you have crossed the southern border of sportsmanship. Somehow, Walt Harris did not understand that he did this. So as Godbeer grabs his groin and turns away from Harris, and the ref is yelling out time and jumping in, Walt Harris goes to throw a punch, pulls that punch, then launches a head kick that does strike Godbeer. Can't tell if it's Godbeer. I believe it's the referees. Or the doctors, the officials at ringside. The fight is called off. We have a done fight at this point. Walt Harris said that he did not feel the referee touching him. That the referee needed to be actively touching him to make the break. Well, one thing I know from sitting cage side at so many fights here locally, from reporting and covering stuff up close, is that a good deal of referees will tell the people, listen to my commands. From boxing to MMA, they're not trying to be a physical, active third participant in what's going on in the combat arena and having to pull you guys apart. You have to be observing their rules. This is almost kind of the same talk we had with Jermaine Durandame hitting after the bell with Holly Holm. And then I started to observe more and more fighters listening to the verbal commands and not having to be ripped apart all the time. Making when these actions do happen, they look that much more suspicious, that much more ridiculous, that much more infantile, and that much more with a lack of sportsmanship. So Walt Harris, just with a dirty tactic, horrible fight IQ, horrible human recognition, I guess, for just his surroundings or his environment that he was in. I can understand you're going till you're stopped, but the ref had his hands on you. Ridiculousness. A disqualification, and the kick landed in a manner that it had impact. I know that the crowd and the announcers of the fight that were calling it were not happy with the stoppage in the result. My opinion, though, counters that. My opinion says that Godbeard took an illegal strike. 2 of them, actually. And when a guy gets poked in the eye, low blowed several times, that damage can't be taken away. You're not going to instantly feel better because you get a couple minutes. It's not just nullified. It has had an effect on you. It was an illegal maneuver. It was a dirty maneuver. And the right decision was made for the disqualification. A highlight reel head kick knockout from Ovin St. Preux in the 3rd round saves another referee debacle in the 2nd round, which Ovin St. Preux did land a giant head kick on Corey Anderson, but for some reason, while in pursuit of the knockdown, the head kick had dislodged Anderson's mouthpiece, flying out. But in pursuit of the stoppage, not a natural break of the action, Dan Miragliotta jumps in between the two to give Anderson back the mouthpiece, and hence stopping the momentum for Preux, giving Anderson 10, 11 seconds to get his brain back together and be able to turn this into a wrestling match. Anderson wrestled for the first 2 rounds. St. Preux landed the harder strikes. In the 3rd round, we got a highlight reel knockout. I felt it as poetic justice for Dan Miragliotta's screw-up in the 2nd round. We also had to kick off the prelims on FS1, another bout that I felt was controversial. Thankfully, the judges, and thankfully Randy Brown himself, was able to make up for Mickey Gale's, what some people will call, gamesmanship. Trying to take advantage of bending the rules to where he's a punk in my eyes by now. I mean, being on the bottom and grabbing the cage, trying to insert it into your toes and use that for leverage is against the rules. You only saw in the fight Mickey Gale get warned of it, I'd say about 5, a handful of times. You also had 3 to 4 occasions of Mickey Gale getting warned by the referee for having his hands inside of Randy Brown's gloves. Also illegal. You also had an occasion of Gale, wool on bottom, full guard, pulling on the trunks of Randy Brown blatantly. Again, another illegal occurrence. And another point that I just want to make is more about, well, 1, he's the punk for cheating, and 2, the incompetency of the ref to let about 9 infractions happen, and there should have been at least 3 points taken. Those were all not detrimental of how they affected the bout, but it was the consistency of his attempts to bend the rules that should not be allowed, and there needs to be a line drawn that we are not going to tolerate these kind of actions. But it's New York, and their commission sucks. Randy Brown showed off new levels to his grappling game in being able to stay on top and deliver very effective ground and pound against Mickey Gall. The CM Punk call-out, Dana White searching for a fight, title belt has now transitioned to Randy Brown, a young prospect at welterweight who keeps growing. Now we also had a highlight reel moment and a controversial moment on the Fight Pass prelims. Ricardo Ramos, the 3rd time was the charm. One of the most deadly spinning back elbows I've ever seen. Took out Amin Zahabi in a dirty, nasty way. Undefeated Brazilian Ricardo Ramos is a prospect, again, to really watch out for. Now, more controversy happened as, well, Curtis Blades, Alexei Oleinik. A dominant showing from Blades, the more athletic, more technical. Obviously going to advance to a higher echelon in his career, I believe, in the UFC. The young man with the wrestling background. Takes down Oleinik. He's beating Oleinik up. He's having his way. He's controlling it. Oleinik, only option is to make the fight dirty. He's able to do that a little bit in the first round, but it's a Blades round. Second round, still we got a Blades round. Blades has busted up Oleinik with a jab. They're on the ground. They're transitioning back up. Oleinik rolls to all fours. And for some reason, Curtis Blades tries a soccer kick. And hits Oleinik, glazing, well, the foot makes contact with the ear of Oleinik, causing the ear to shake. Oleinik reacts to the contact. The referee jumps in because it's a kick to the head of a downed opponent. In the doctor checking out Oleinik, who is Russian. I don't know if the doctor is bilingual, and I do not believe that there was any translator around. The fight is stopped. The fighter cannot continue. Now in New York, they have implemented you can go to the replay. They go to the replay, and after observing it, I guess that the decision is made that the contact of the illegal blow was not detrimental enough to lead to the fight being ended. It was the accumulation of damage from the first to second rounds, which was a lot that Blades did, was what led to Oleinik being in the state where the fight could not continue. It makes you almost wonder, if we had doctors checking out fighters in between rounds, I wonder how many fights would be stopped. Just medically speaking. Just throwing that out there real quick. But that's what we get now. So, in the funniest foul ever, because he fouled in that moment, Curtis Blades, we get a stoppage of where the doctor is able to check out Oleinik, deem the fight stopping, or Oleinik gives up, which wouldn't have happened if we were not in that situation. But that situation happened because Blades attempted an illegal maneuver. Because with Oleinik down on all fours, he tried to soccer kick him. He tried to soccer kick him in the head, and a positive result comes out for Blades, not because he pulled back, but because he has bad aim. Because he did not land a centimeter more, and maybe the outcome is the ear busting open, or possibly getting kicked off due to the cauliflower ear that Oleinik has from his years of grappling. You think about it, it's an inch further, and it fully lands to the side of the head, and it is a concussive blow. You are in control of your weapons, and you should not throw illegal techniques. But in this outcome, it benefits Blades in a way that feels quite preposterous. It doesn't feel right to disqualify Blades, but how do you reward a lack of judgment? How do you reward a lack of aiming? His intent was a highlight reel knockout. It's what he said. Well, his intent would have cost him the fight. So what we're giving him is a victory because he missed. And I feel like that is a no contest. But then again, maybe it's not a no contest because it's a mind-boggling confusion situation where the damage was caused earlier. Blades had won the fight, but getting off without any punishment for trying to do what was a completely illegal move, but not getting penalized it's the attempted murder. It's the whole thought of attempted murder. Oh, I missed. I'm okay. Let me go. But Curtis Blades walks away with a win. A heavy win. Dudes look like motherfucking dumb asses with the antics that they pulled on Saturday night. Bad fight IQ, bad judgment, and just inexplicably bad judgment on both cases. One guy throws a head kick while being touched, another dude a blatantly illegal soccer kick, and a third dumbass with Mickey Gall pulling on the cage, pulling on the shorts, pulling on the gloves, just pushing to make the refs make a call because they know there's a lackluster commission. But who cares, because you can do big money in New York, so that's what we're after here in this sport. Not safety, not the best people judging it to make sure we get the best outcomes, but what will be the most profitable. UFC 217 had surprises, upsets, the return of Georgia St. Pierre, the new middleweight champion of the world, and everybody probably wants to know what's next for GSP. What's next for GSP? Dana White said it's Robert Whittaker. I believe what I've heard is that when this fight was made official, Bisbane GSP, that it was known the winner, either way, was fighting Robert Whittaker, the interim champion. Fingers crossed that happens at the pay-per-view in Australia that was recently announced. That would be amazing to see. You want to think long-term. What could happen after that fight? Well, I believe that fight happens, but there's still this scary hesitation thought in my head that instead of doing Tyrone Woodley versus the winner of RDA versus Robbie Lawler, that we could see a GSP versus Tyrone Woodley, which would then probably just leave Robert Whittaker as the champion, because if GSP went down to 170, I believe he would then try to ascend down to 155 for a matchup of cosmic proportions with Conor McGregor, which would be a financial volcano everywhere around the world. There are 3 fights out there for Georgia St. Pierre. It's Robert Whittaker, it's Tyrone Woodley, and it's Conor McGregor. You possibly could sneak Tony Ferguson, Khabib Nurmagomedov in that conversation if they get their hands on Conor McGregor. Maybe a Nate Diaz flies in there, but I believe that McGregor, Woodley, and Robert Whittaker are the 3 matchups that we have to enjoy with Georgia St. Pierre, where I believe he came back to make a point about being the greatest martial arts, the greatest MMA fighter of all time, and that point has started to be made, and I think those 3 fights is how he fully asserts himself atop of being, the sustained GOAT, greatest of all time, untouchable with that label, no matter what happens. There wasn't just UFC this weekend. There was also Bellator. There was LFA. There was Professional Fighters League TSE Fight Night. This was a busy weekend of mixed martial arts. Blagoy Ivanov continued his hot streak, showed off a well-rounded game. You had Lance Palmer showing off his wrestling. Timur Aliev gets the submission. It was a fun night in DC Thursday night. Friday, Access TV from Houston, Texas. You had LFA 26. Adrian Yanez showed off an improved striking game, or at least his precision and patience looked to be better off back at 135 pounds, dropping down from 145 where we'd seen him the last couple times. Juan Adams ate a couple hard strikes from Bryce Renatico, but the size difference was just too much. When Renatico tripped and hit the ground, it allowed Adams to get on top. Devastating ground and pound for the finish. 2-0, a huge heavyweight, and still a prospect to keep an eye out for. Our guest from last week, congratulations to Juan Adams. Nicole Kalari gets the TKO win over Isabel Escobar in let's call it disputed fashion. An early stoppage from the ref. Yes, Esquivel was mounted, but she was not done, was not damaged, was not bleeding, looked to be in it, jumped right back up, was fine. That was more of an amateur stoppage where you don't want anybody to get hurt. These are the pro ranks. They should have let the fight keep going. It was a tied first round. It was Kalari's second round. No disrespect to Kalari. That was a very good debut for the Brazilian, but I feel bad for Esquivel. It looked like she was robbed in that fight of getting to continue to fight. Charles Cheek submits on 9 days' notice. His opponent came in on 9 days' notice. Weston Wilson gave it all he got, but Cheeks, bigger, stronger, did a lot of damage from the guard before being able to get to the back at the rear naked choke. Thanks to a solid wrestling game and a heavy top presence, Larry Crow gets a split decision from Bael Williams in what was just a grueling effort. Jeff Hughes, the new LFA heavyweight champion, timely takedowns, pressure and control, being able to put Richard Odoms on the cage. A very nice 1-2, working the front leg. Jeff Hughes, now I believe 9-1 as a professional, had a 11-fight amateur run. I think he needs to work a little bit on his cardio, but an interesting prospect. See who they line up next for Hughes to defend that LFA title, or does Bellator possibly come calling, because they really do need to add depth to their heavyweight division. Talking about Bellator, we need depth to their heavyweight division. The light heavyweight division we know was on display Friday night. But before that, Taiwan Claxton, vicious flying knee. I'm sure you've seen it making its way around the internet. If not, look for it, because it may be the knockout of the year. The knee knockout of the year. The spinning back elbow knockout of the year we saw at UFC 217, along with the kick knockout of the year, I believe. Logan Storley, undefeated prospect who had been in the RFA that Bellator had scooped up, picks up a unanimous decision win. He keeps on rolling. We rolled on up to the main card where it started off with Syed Awad. Congratulations, buddy. Heavy hands, did quick work, taking apart Zach Freeman. That right hand, stunning, just hard, landed 3 times, devastation, and a big win for Syed. Ed Ruth never had to go to his wrestling, stayed behind a 1-2 and good head movement and knocking out Chris Dempsey. Dempsey, his 3rd consecutive knockout loss, possibly time if possible. Take a little step back away from the cage, Dempsey. Work on the training aspects. Do some stuff to save your brain. Phil Davis, a dynamic game plan, as normal, sticks to it. Didn't want to press in areas where he didn't feel great. If the water was too deep, he didn't swim there, and defeats Leo Letty. Phil Davis, after the fight, of course, said he'd like a title fight, or he'd like King Mo. I'd rather see King Mo get a title fight at this point, just because we have a lack of depth at 205 in Bellator. The co-main event, the crowning of the first ever Bellator women's flyweight champion, Alimale McFarland gets the submission of Emily Ducote with the armbar in the 5th round. 3 minutes, 42 seconds. McFarland showed off improvements in her striking, was working with the leg kicks, was not defending against Ducote's leg kicks that were starting to take effect, but showed great hands, got to the ground, showed off that 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu game. The EBI title holder gets a submission victory. That spider guard, crazy, straight armbar, was trying to armbar both arms. A very impressive performance that definitely has you thinking, if we're talking about the whole world right now, McFarland is the biggest title holder right now. She's the Bellator champion. We don't have a UFC champion. She is the world champion. but that could change depending on what your feelings are about the potential winners when we get there to the finals of this tough season that we're currently in, where you have Barb Honchak, you have Roxanne Modafferi, women that have held that Invicta title, so they've already been on that echelon as the best in the world. But Alima Lay McFarland with a big, I believe, step up that ladder in the world rankings with such an impressive performance, and us seeing her skills round out in such a manner. In the main event, Ryan Bader took apart Linton Vassell, showed why he was the better wrestler, got on top, that wrestler ride, and pounds out Vassell in the second round. It was very important to Bader to A, to defend, which he did, and B, to get the finish, which he did. C, we go back to where does Bader go from here, and I believe it's King Mo, just because we've already, just us as an MMA society and community, have already seen Bader Davis twice, and it was the same fight twice, and nothing that I've seen out of Davis has said to me that this fight needs to happen because it'll be that much difference. It has to happen to the point where they say we don't have any more bodies for Davis to fight in Bellator. But it's almost getting to that point anyway with the lack of depth they have at 205 pounds. How many interesting matchups are there really out there left for Phil Davis, especially with a Vassell coming off of a loss now? Do you bring back Chael Sonnen to fight a Phil Davis? Maybe that gets you a little excited. I'm not sure what they do for Davis next. Ryan Bader, though, like I said, you go to King Mo. That could be a fun matchup. Two guys with wrestling background, both boxing centric. Maybe they won't be scared to commit. Possibly they will be. Maybe Rampage Jackson rears his head up in this. But Bellator in the 205 division feels a little bit stagnant. November 18th, Top Shelf Entertainment presents Rubicon 6 up Colorado Springs Event Center. And this time they are sponsoring or helping to support Colton's Heroes. And joining us, we got 4 fighters from the JacksonWink Academy. We got one joining us who's going to be on the card in a Flyweight Amateur title fight. Thank you for the time, Cole Griego. How you doing?
Oh, absolutely, sir. I'm doing great. Camp's going, and I'm ready to take that belt home on November 18th.
So first time going back down to 125 in a couple fights. How you feeling? How is the dieting, going?
I'm feeling great. I've never, like I said, taken a weight cut this seriously before. I'm walking around probably about 142 now. Being with Dr. Anita, one of the best nutritionists in the game. No one on her program has ever failed. She has all the fighters, making weight with ease. So I'm getting with her, and, I'm going to make weight, easily. And even though I walk around at, almost 160 pounds, I'm going to make this weight. And, Chris Carroll is going to be walking in to the cage on November 18th with a featherweight. And, I hope he's ready.
Do you feel like you're a flyweight, a bantamweight? Where do you feel that the risk versus the reward for your amateur career, at least, as you're still an amateur right now, lies? What weight class are you?
So I feel like I'm truly a bantamweight, considering I walk around, like I said, at about 160 pounds. Even if I, find a featherweight, I have to cut a little bit of weight. So I'm definitely, really, really big for flyweight. But I feel like, the title, that belt around my waist is going to be such an amazing feeling, and all this dieting and all this hard work is just going to be more than worth it. And, like I said, the risk is definitely worth the reward. And I feel like shortly after I win this belt, I will be making my pro debut, and that will possibly be at flyweight as well. I would like to go back up to bantamweight after this bout, or possibly even featherweight. I'm talking with right now the promoter for Real MMA, and I'm hopefully going to go out there in January and get another win out in Vegas. And then after that, I'm looking to go pro, and I'm looking to make big strides next year, and make that money, represent my team, represent God, and just, do everything I can to build my name up and just let everyone know who I am and what I'm here to do, and that's become a world champion.
Has that been the talk amongst the coaches too? Is one, maybe two more in the amateur ranks, and then you should be ready for the pro debut?
Yeah, definitely. Because I've been sparring with the pros now for a while. It's been about 6 months. Joey gave me the okay to spar with the pros, and I'm going rounds with guys like Ray Borg and Steve Garcia. All these guys that are animals and that are signed to the UFC and Bellator. So I'm going to be so prepared. Going in there on November 18th, more prepared than I ever have been, and I'm just gonna. You guys are going to see the most complete Cole Griego on November 18th. Wherever this fight goes, whether it's on the ground, in the standing, I'm going to finish this fight. And I would like to get the knockout. I'm hunting for the highlight reel knockout in this fight. But if he gives me just anything on the ground, any sort of submission, I'm going to snap it up and I'm going to take that belt home as fast as I can. I'm coming for that belt.
What did you think about getting offered the title fight and being offered it at 125? What was the initial reaction?
Initial reaction was just pure excitement. I asked Aaron, because I seen him, they were looking for a flyweight to step up to fight Chris Carroll. Looking for a little bit of time, I had messaged Aaron and I was like, look, I'll drop the flyweight to, for a title bout. And he was like, let me see what their camp says. He took a couple days to get back to me. But yeah, he messaged me and was like, okay, I guess they accepted. We're good to go. I signed the contract and that was that. And once, that contract was signed, I was just pure excitement in my mind. I'm ready to go. I love fighting. This is my passion. And I can't wait to go out there and prove to everyone that I'm one of the best amateurs in Albuquerque. And I'm on the come up. I'm ready to prove to everyone that I'm the real deal.
What did you take away from the win over Hector Leon up there at Rubicon 5?
That was such a great win, especially coming off of a pretty hard loss at the Jackson Series. I just felt like I wasn't there that night. I was really disappointed in my performance. Even though, Mark definitely didn't want to stand with me. If he would have standed with me for one more second, he would have gotten swept. But, it is what it is. He just laid on top of me, and I felt like I just felt like I can't let that ever happen again. I can't go into a fight and let someone lay on top of me and, land strikes. Because, to his credit, he had some good chain wrestling, and he landed some hard strikes, from the top. And, but it is what it is, The fight with Hector was amazing, though. I knew going into that fight, I had to get that win. I was so hungry. I was so pissed, about my last fight that I performed that way. There was no way that fight was going to slip out from underneath me. And Hector, much respect to that guy. That dude is tough as nails. That fight, he was also 3-1, had a good record, and had, established himself already. So I was, ready to take that win, and I did, and I'm going to do the same thing on November 18th, and I'm even more hungry than I was the last time. So I can only imagine what kind of Cole Griego that you guys are going to see on Saturday night.
A little more about that win over Leon. Talk us through the second round. That's where you found the finish. You got the knees. It led to going to the ground, a little ground and pound. You solidified your position. Then the ground and pound, you get the choke. Tell us about what the second round was like from your perspective.
So the second round, was all me. Mr. Coach Tennyson.
And, of course, as I asked that question, somehow our call has failed, and I'm going to try to reconnect with Mr. Griego. Hello?
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
It's okay. We're still recording. We had lost you for a second. It happens. Do you remember the question?
Yes, I do. Okay, so the second round. So, yeah, I was, after the first round, I honestly, in the first round, I had a little bit of an adrenaline dump. I did take that fight on short notice, of course, and, I did step into the cage in really good shape. But after the first round, Hector, he got a pretty good takedown, didn't really land anything significant. Had a little bit of an adrenaline dump. Felt like I got hit in the back of the head a couple times toward the end of the round. But, nothing in there is going to shake me no matter what, you know, and no matter what happens, I'm always going to be coming forward no matter, you know, how tired I am, no matter how hard you hit me, I'm coming forward no matter what. And, you know, the start of that second round, I felt great. I came out there, I started, you know, letting my hands go a little bit. He had a nice step-in knee, I'll give him that. But I just knew that I was going to be able to get that takedown again. As soon as I got that takedown, mount, straight into mount, and I was just really patient with it. Was possibly looking to set up an arm triangle. He was defending really well. I was smothering him. I knew he was getting tired. I knew he was struggling to get me off, so I was going to let him wear himself out. I did. I was patient. I waited my moment, and as soon as, you know, the time was right, I postured up, landed about 25 really hard strikes, and then he gave me the choke, and that was that. I took home the W, and, you know, that's exactly what I'm going to do in 2 weeks.
Now, how does the momentum feel rethinking about that finish and what you've been able to build from that performance into this upcoming championship fight?
It's going to be amazing. You know, I have a lot of, you know, family and fans in Colorado. The atmosphere out there just, I feel like, really drives me to just, you know, fight amazing. I love, you know, being out in Colorado. I feel very much at home, even though I know, you know, it's Chris Carroll's hometown. He's going to be the hometown boy. None of that stuff matters to me. You know, even if I was I had no fans. No one was in the crowd rooting for me. You know, I'm in there for me. I'm in there, you know, to solidify my position in this world and in this fight game. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't care what anyone says, who anyone is rooting for, whatever. You know, I'm going in there, you know, mentally just ready to destroy, and that's how it's going to be on November 18th. Mentally, I'm going to be so prepared. Physically, I'm going to be prepared just in every possible way. I'm going to be just more than prepared to finish this fight in the first or second round.
If you're following Cole on social media like I am, been seeing you and Chris Rojas putting in a lot of extra work.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're doing 2 to 3 sessions a day at least. You know, we're grinding. Me and Chris we've been friends since high school. That's my day one. That's my day one boy. You know, we're always we drive each other to be better. You know, we're both such hard workers. And then, you know, when we get together, you know, we go at it. We go crazy. And, you know, that's how it's been. You know, Chris is going to be in my corner on November 18th, and we're doing this training camp together. And, you know, it's been intense. Like I said, physically, I'm going to be in the best shape of my life coming into that fight. Even though I'm taking this fight, you know, on short notice, I've been training. You know, I'm going to be more than ready to you know, finish this fight and go even 5 rounds. You know, I was even going to request to make it a 5-round fight, but, you know, I don't think that's possible. That's why I asked Aaron. I was like, are we doing 3 or 5 rounds? I was kind of hoping he would say 5 rounds, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, I'm the kind of fighter that likes to drag people into deep waters, you know, and I feel like if, you know, at the end of 3 rounds, I haven't finished it, which is very unlikely, I would like to, you know, drag it into the 4th and 5th rounds. You know, I want to keep fighting until it's, you know, until I finish it. You know, I don't ever want to leave it into the hands of the judges. So that's kind of where my mindset is at, and that's why I'm going to have such a huge sense of urgency to finish this fight, you know, in the 1st or 2nd round, because I do not like leaving it into the hands of the judges. And, you know, obviously because you know, all my wins are by finish, and, you know, I want to keep that up. I've never been finished before, and, you know, that's not going to happen on November 18th. That's a promise. So, you know, that's that. I'm going to go in there, get the finish, be in the best shape of my life, bring that belt home to Albuquerque, JacksonWink, and, you know, that's going to be just the beginning of it's going to be the first of many, I should say.
Chris Carroll, he has all of his wins, all 3 of his amateur wins so far by stoppage. How much looking into your opponent have you did and do you do at this phase of the game still in your amateur process?
You know, honestly, I could care less about what Chris Carroll's doing or who he's beat or what his fights are. I haven't looked up any footage on him. I know that I'm bigger, I know that I'm longer, and I know that I'm better, more athletic, and just all around a better fighter. And I'm going to prove it on Saturday, and I hope he's ready to go into deep, deep waters, because I'm going to take him there.
At the JacksonWink Academy now, I know you've been to a couple different gyms. What has made this the right situation for you?
Just the coaches, the training partners, the atmosphere, everything at Jackson's is just, amazing. I have so many, buddies over there, like Dominic Yara, Dennis Actis, like all these top amateurs that are just, amazing. The list goes on. Justin Blasian O'Connor. We got Jesse DeFoya, Jake, my Japanese homie. We just got all these killer amateurs that are just, almost at a pro level. They're these amateurs that are at a pro level that I'm training with. And, I'm not only training with them, but I am training with the pros as well. So I just feel like it's just a great mix, and it's been a great camp. And I love it there. And not only that, but the coaches, Joey Villasenor, Wink, we got everything there. We got all the secrets. We got all the tools, we got absolutely everything. And, I'm going to display all of that on November 18th, all of those tools, all of those weapons that I've learned from, the academy. I'm going to put on into display on November 18th, and you're going to see some wildness. That's what I'm going to say.
With the star-studded team that you've been around, has there been any ever starstruck moments that you've had there?
I don't know about starstruck. It's so crazy. I've gotten used to it, being around all these stars, and
Well, that's what I meant when you first start. Did you ever get starstruck or at awe of being with a team like that?
Oh, definitely. It was amazing when I first started. Walking into the gym and seeing Holly Holm and John Dawson and all these guys sparring, and they're all so nice, and they just will come up to you and be like, "Oh, what's up?" And just it's like they're just regular people. It's so cool to go into the gym and just see people who have such big names and are so huge in the world, just being so respectful to people like us who are just up and comers and aren't really anybody yet. And they're just always there to help. All the pros are just being amazing to all the fighters, and it's just a great atmosphere all around. There's never of course there's gym drama everywhere, but for the most part at Jackson's it's just great vibes all around, friendly people all around, and it's amazing there. And back to the question you asked, definitely seeing not only our local fighters like Diego Sanchez and Holly Holm and John Dotson, all those guys training there, but seeing like Joanna Jędrzejczyk come in and Rose Namajunas, those moments sometimes kind of get me starstruck. Seeing like Cody No Love was there, like so many guys just coming into Jackson's because it's the best gym in the world, and definitely there's been a couple of times where I've wanted to take pictures with the fighters and gotten a little bit excited, a little bit starstruck, if you want to say that. So yeah, definitely.
I've heard of Cody No Love, Tyrone Woodley. I've heard of people, they drop in at Albuquerque for a couple days. So out of those people that aren't fully committed to the team or members, what was the most surprised you've been to see a fighter at the JacksonWink Academy?
Probably Joanna. I don't know why. I just never, expected her to be there. Her training all the way in Poland, and I believe she was looking for a camp to do her fight. I think it was against Claudia. She's looking for a new camp. I know she's with American Top Team now, I believe. But yeah, it was amazing to see her there. I was really shocked, just to see this champion all the way from Poland, come to train here in Albuquerque with us. It was amazing.
Can you keep track of how many people you've met from different countries while training there?
Oh, absolutely not. It's in the hundreds. We're always having new people come from all over the world. Kazakhstan, Russia, China, India, everywhere. You name it. We got fighters coming, to train with us here in Albuquerque. From there. So it's amazing. I love it. I love meeting all these new people from different places. Learning the culture from different places. It's just that's another thing I love. About Jackson's that I didn't mention. It's just being able to train with all these people from all around the world, and learning new techniques and new styles that have been established other places. It's just it really helps me expand my mind in the fight game, and it really just brings a whole new horizon to how many weapons and how many tools that
Where does this line up with the goals that you set for your amateur career competing for a title?
I feel like I'm, on track. I definitely wanted, my goal at the beginning of this year was to, have a belt wrapped around my waist by the end of the year. So, I'm on track. If I can, when I get this win on November 18th and get that belt, I'm going to just be chasing more belts. Like I said, I want to make my pro debut shortly after this, but I want to go take a belt from another organization like Tough Enough or Real MMA. Even though I know amateur titles aren't that big, I want to prepare myself for the big stage. And I feel like that's really gonna do it for me.
Is
so
there
definitely on track?
Is there the rush to make the pro debut, or are you still looking for possibly some more rounds, some more experience, could do you some well for when you make the jump?
Definitely I'm not in any rush. I'm 20 years old. I'm, still a baby, so I'm definitely, not in any rush. I'm gonna, take my first pro fight when I know I'm, absolutely more than ready, and I'm gonna make sure I get a full camp in. And, it's gonna be the right time. And I'm not gonna, like I said, rush it. I definitely, think after this, possibly a couple more amateur fights would be good, maybe even 3, possibly, even 4 more, just depending on what kind of opportunities come to rise. And we'll just, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the coaches have to say. And yeah, we'll just see, what kind of performance I put on, Yeah, I know it's going to be amazing. But I think that once I start getting, these highlight reel finishes and, I start taking my game even to the next level, I think I'm going to just be more than ready to make my pro debut. I'm so confident in how fast I grow in this sport. And when I really want something, I'm going to get it. I really want this. So, I'm going to get it. That's a promise. It's in my mind. So it's going to happen. That's, the kind of person I am. And so, yeah, that's that. So I'm, ideally, I'll definitely make my pro debut sometime next year. But I'm not in any, I don't have any exact time frame I want to make it. Just sometime by next year. And I definitely, like I said, want to get a couple more amateur fights in and, just be fully prepared to, be undefeated as a pro.
You said if you want something, you make it happen. Talk about your mental tenacity and that side of your game.
Mentally, I feel like that's just one of my biggest strong points. When I go in there, I feel like I perform great under pressure. I love the spotlight. I love people watching me, and when you mix together my passion and all those things, the spotlight on me, people watching me do what I love, and something I know that I'm good at. I feel like that just really brings out the showman in me, and I'm gonna prove that, like I said. And yeah, that's that. I feel like mentally I'm just a beast, and no one can beat me. Like I said earlier in the interview, no matter if I'm tired, if you hit me hard, no matter what, I'm hard to hit, so good luck with that. If it happens, I'm not stopping. I'm coming at you. I have that, Robbie Lawler mentality. You look at Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald. I'm coming at you the whole time. You're gonna have to put me to sleep, or do something really bad to stop me. Because I'm coming at you no matter what. There's nothing. If you break my arm, whatever. I'm gonna be coming at you. I'm the kind of guy like Tony Ferguson, whatever. I break my arm midway fight. You're not even gonna know it until after, because I'm gonna keep coming at you, and I'm gonna keep striving for that win. So that's kind of where I'm at mentally. I just before the fight, I'm really good at keeping myself calm and just going in there and remembering all the tools and all the weapons that I have.
Totally passionate about what you do. How did you realize this was your journey, that this was your path, that martial arts, MMA was what you wanted to do, even now at such a young age?
I've been doing it for a while. I started, me and my dad been watching, UFC since, way back, UFC 90, I think, back when Chuck Liddell and, Forrest Griffin and all those guys were still big. We were watching the UFC, and Mean One MMA opened up right across the street from where we just moved. moved back when. So it's Wings Gym now. Of course, back then it was Mean One MMA years ago. So that's when I started. We started with Chris Luttrell over at Mean One, and we started, doing some grappling competitions together. Started doing the Grapple Fest and started doing good, and I just fell in love with it right away. And then, so mainly, I started with jiu-jitsu at Mean One, and then I started getting into the striking, and that I just also completely fell in love with. I not only fell in love with the jiu-jitsu and the grappling right off the beginning, but then once I started striking and doing the kickboxing and the Muay Thai, just the combination of the two, and then I started doing judo and just practicing everything. And I just thought it was so cool that I was learning all these martial arts and that I could go and, display all that stuff in the cage in front of all of these people. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And, I've been doing it ever since. Of course, when I started, I was, 13 and I wanted to, be in a cage fight. I was like, oh, that's, I had to wait till I was 18. And that was always a bummer for me. I wanted to, fight. I did have some, I had one smoker in Estancia, and, that was a really fun experience. And, sometimes I wish I could go back, just to, the start of my career, just because I remember it was just so amazing to fall in love with a new sport, and just knowing that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life, and I wanted to compete in MMA, when I turned 18, and that's something I just wanted to do forever. It was just, an amazing feeling. So, like I said, wish I could go back sometimes and, relive that part of my life. But, I'm just going to keep, it's in my life forever. So I'm just going to keep growing in the sport. And, I'm going to make it big. I'm going to be signed. You're going to see me on TV. That's for sure. I'm going to be in Bellator. I'm going to be in the UFC. I'm going to be making that money, representing the 505 and representing God, like I said. And, that's a promise. That's something I'm going to do. You're hearing me say it now. It's going to happen. You will, within the next, year or two, I will be on the big screen, knocking people out.
And sooner than that, you guys can see him in action again. Colorado Springs, November 18th, the Colorado Springs Event Center, Rubicon 6. Cole Griego, tell everybody how they can keep up with you on social media.
Alrighty, so let's go. My Instagram is Cole Griego MMA, no caps, no spaces, just my full name, MMA. Follow me on Instagram. I need to get a Twitter. I'm slacking on that. But you can also add me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on there as well. Just Cole Griego. I don't think there's not a lot of Cole Griegos, so I should be the only one up there. So look me up, add me, follow me, and thank you guys so much for the support. And I look forward to putting on a show for you guys and solidifying myself as number one.
And what was your biggest takeaway from UFC 217?
That was an amazing night. I was thrilled with those fights. I was pulling for Yolanda to beat Rose. I love Yolanda. She has a style similar to mine. That Muay Thai, really fast, really technical. I was not expecting at all for Rose to be able to stand with her, let alone finish her by knockout. So that was crazy. And then in the next fight, I called TJ to win that fight. I was pulling for TJ. I like Cody No Love. I'm definitely a fan, but I just felt like it was not cool. What Team Alpha Male was doing. They were kind of pinning Cody against the wall. Pinning TJ against the wall, and it was kind of like Team Alpha Male versus TJ. And I felt like they kind of made themselves look like asses on the Ultimate Fighter. They were just always talking smack. Cody with his cocky attitude, and just I felt like Cody had the wrong attitude and the wrong mindset going into that fight. And I felt like I called it. I called TJ for knockout. Everyone called me crazy when I said it too. I was like, I think TJ's going to finish Cody, and everyone was like, oh, you're crazy, bro. You're crazy. Look what happened. So that's that. Like I said, I'm a fan of both. It was a great fight. I think the rematch will definitely happen, and I'm definitely going to be watching. And then as far as the main event goes, I was pulling for Michael Bisping. I'm a huge Michael Bisping fan. I'm also a GSP fan. Who doesn't love GSP? But Michael Bisping's my boy. I think he's I love his mindset. I love his smack talk. He makes me laugh, and I'm definitely a big Bisping fan. I was disappointed he got choked out, but still a fan, and I'm happy for GSP. He's definitely one of the greatest of all times, and hats off to him. I hope to see him fight Robert Whittaker if he does fight Robert Whittaker, he might get his ass knocked out, but, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, I'll be pulling for GSP in that fight. You know, I like Robert Whittaker, but I want GSP to get that win and, you know, solidify himself as, you know, one of the greatest of all time. Because, like I said, you know, I'm definitely a big GSP fan.
I gotta say, with Anderson Silva and John Jones's USADA problems, I think we're solidified that GSP is probably number one, if not number two, if not number one all time. It's a debate that'll go on forever.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I definitely think, you know, him and DJ, it's a toss up between those two.
Exactly, and it's like, well, with that size difference, you never know, and it's hard for people to forget with short memories. DJ already had rose to number one contendership at 135 pounds before he was ever in the flyweight division.
Exactly. So I feel like DJ even, you know, doesn't get as much respect as he even, you know, he gets a lot of respect, definitely. You know, people have said, you know, DJ is the greatest of all time. But I feel like he does also get a lot of criticism, and, you know, I don't like that. You know, I feel like DJ's, you know, he's beat the record. He beat Anderson Silva's record. I mean, give the dude respect. You know, you can't talk smack about him. You can't say anything. You know, he's shut you down. You know, he's performed every time. You know, even against, you know, my teammate Ray Borg, he had such an amazing finish, and, you know, there's just nothing to be said after that. You know, he proved himself, and, you know, that's that. The proof's in the pudding, and, you know, DJ's got that cup of pudding, Micah.
Definitely. And Rose, who saw that coming? Upset of the year.
Oh, and no one saw that coming. That was just, I mean, if anything, I could have seen, you know, Rose possibly subbing Joanna, you know, getting a rear naked or something like that. But just that left hook was vicious, and I could not believe it. I seen Joanna's eyes, like, roll into the back of her head, and then I seen her tap, you know, and I just was, you know, my jaw dropped. I was in awe. I couldn't believe it, you know, and I, you know, like I said, I was pulling for Joanna. I'm a big fan of hers, but, you know, Rose is such a cool girl, too. She's, you know, an awesome competitor and just a really great person. So, you know, definitely was happy to see her, you know, get the win. And, yeah, it was great. I'm really happy for Rose.
Your opinion, longtime UFC fan like myself, greatest pay-per-view of all time?
It's up there. It's definitely in the top 5. Definitely.
Top 5, definitely. I think UFC 100 still stands at the top.
Oh, I could agree with you there. Definitely. That was an amazing night. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Cole Griego, thank you for joining me this week.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, my friend. I look forward to having another interview with you soon.
Definitely. We'll talk about the win right after it happens, okay?
Absolutely, my friend. You have a good one.
You too. This Friday night, you have LFA 27. They're back in Oklahoma, Shaheed, Oklahoma. The main event, the lightweight title on the line. Robert Watley, Daryl Wilson, matching 8-1 records. A light heavyweight co-main event. Myron Dennis, the tough alum, kickboxing-esque centric striker against Ryan Spann, coming off of a devastating win. We've seen great highlight reel finishes from Spann. We've seen him get taken down a notch by elbows on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and you've seen him fight a tough decision. This one will be a grueling fight with a highlight reel finish from one of the two parties. Tyler Sin is back on the card in his hometown fighting in flyweight. You also have 4-0 prospect TJ Button on the card. LFA 27 continuing to put out weekly exciting cards featuring the top prospects in mixed martial arts. Bellator is also back this weekend there in Ireland. AJ McKee in the main event against Brian Moore. Sinead Kavanagh takes on Maria Casanova. Charlie Ward versus John Redmond. John Redmond, 6'5", 205 pounds. 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 John Redm Baby Slice, Kevin Ferguson Jr. against Fred Freeman. You're really looking to see how AJ McKee progresses and what kind of dynamic finish he can come up against a Brian Moore who walks in with a 66% winning percentage in the biggest fight of his life. The Irishman there, though, to defend the pride of his country, see if he can feed off of his fellow countrymen. Charlie Ward should have never been in the UFC, but was a Conor McGregor friend. He's taking on John Redmond, who's getting another main card fight after taking a beating in his last bout out, having to fight John Salter. Bellator back on Spike TV Friday night. UFC is back on FS1 Saturday night from Norfolk, Virginia with a stacked card. I think it's a stacked fight night card. At least the main card looks really appetizing to me. Lightweight main event, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Love his length, love where his striking is went, his submission ability, taking on the explosive Showtime, Anthony Pettis, the former champion. When his striking is on, the kid looks phenomenal, looks like a superstar. Hesitations on Poirier come up when he had the ability to finish Eddie Alvarez, but couldn't take advantage of it. You think, can Pettis grow off of the win, coming back up to 155 pounds from that 145-pound experiment? How great he looked in the last fight. Will that continue? Tore up Jim Miller. Didn't expect Miller to win at all. Anyway, this is a different level of fight, taking on Poirier. A great main event. The co-main event, Matt Brown has already announced he's retiring. Diego Sanchez is coming back up to 170 pounds. I like the emotion of going out on top, that Matt Brown finds a way to pull this one out. But just the fan side of me would really love to see Diego Sanchez, the Nightmare, ground and pound and grind out Matt Brown, send him into retirement bloody and beaten. Both are quite big possibilities, but I'm leaning towards Brown. Andrei Arlovsky has been on a slide. He's now training with the American Top Team, trying to stop it. He'll take on Brazilian Junior Albini, who has a awkward karate stylist. If Albini lands, Arlovsky's going to sleep. I believe Arlovsky's got to take this one to the ground to be successful. 185 pounds. Cesar Fajeda seemed to be putting it together. Can he add the big name of former title challenger, former Strikeforce champion Nate the Great Marquardt, who his team from Colorado, training there with Trevor Whitman, has been on a roll. Look at Gaethje, look at Namajunas. Is Marquardt able to continue on that roll? 135-pound division. Does Rafael Assunção maintain that he is a contender and somebody that should be in the conversation for a UFC title shot? Or does Matthew Lopez insert his name into that conversation? Good grappler, good young prospect, but will it be enough to take out such a veteran like Assunção? In a fun lightweight matchup, and I'm just going through the card at random points. This is probably is not the correct order. You got Clay Guida and Joe Lozon jumping out at you. I believe that Clay Guida has taken his skills up a level. He's looking better now since returning to 155 pounds. And Joe Lozon hit a peak, but has hit a valley. He could always hit a peak again. Always entertaining. That one has to be the betting favorite for Fight of the Night just right away. Bloodiest fight of the night, definitely it's going to be. Lozon the cleaner hands, but can he keep up with the activity and the pace that Guida will set? John Dodson, Marlon Moraes. You may have to rewind this one later in the night, way after the event, and watch it back in slow motion to just see all the mayhem that's going to happen. Dodson believes that nobody has his physical attributes in the 135-pound division. That nobody's as fast, that nobody hits as hard. Marlon Moraes has been working with Frankie Edgar. He has a diversity of striking. His kicks are a little more used than Dodson. I'd love to see Dodson mix up his game more. It was ever so close. The split decision loss to Rafael Assunção that Moraes suffered, or Moraes would be in that upper echelon category. John Dodson also suffered that loss to John Lineker that was ever so close. he bounced back in a big way, taking out Eddie Wineland. I talked to the man around the gym, and it seems he feels that no one wants to fight him, that everybody's ducking him. A willing competitor here. This one has fireworks written all over it in the 135-pound division. If I'm not getting you excited, I don't know how to do it then. For you people that like that sort of thing, Sage Northcutt is on the card. You also have in the women's strawweight division, tough winner Tatiana Suarez taking on undefeated Viviana Pereira. A young prospect will make a big impact coming out of that one in that 115-pound division. Carl Robertson, Darren Stewart, two bangers in the middleweight division, explosive young prospects. In the light heavyweight division, you have Marcel Fortuna taking on Jake Collier. In the welterweight division, Sean Strickland, who normally kind of is a slow worker, likes to work behind his jab, is going to take on the pace, volume, and pressure of Court McGee. You also have in the strawweight division Nina Ansaroff against Angela Overkill Hill. That one is going to be a fun little striking contest. UFC Fight Night, 120 Norfolk, Virginia. I believe FS1 and UFC Fight Pass to be able to check out this event. Now, also, Saturday night, if you're here locally in the Albuquerque, the New Mexico area, again, get on down to the Manuel Lujan Complex, the Expo New Mexico grounds for Battle for the Brave, presented by Legacy Boxing Promotions. A fun night of boxing scheduled with New Mexico's top prospects. Main event, identical 10-0 undefeated records. Reese Alim coming from Las Vegas to take on Jason Sanchez. The co-main event, Brian Labala Mendoza against John David Charles. You also have Matt Griego versus Alejandro Moreno, Carlos Villa, Anthony Hill, Christian Cabral, Tavares Teague, Matthew Escobar, Christopher Russell, Christian Castillo, Timothy Ruiz, Jordan Garcia, Katie Ramirez, Augustine Perez, Otto Sandoval, your top prospects to keep an eye on. Don't forget, Matthew Escobar, 9-0. Matthew Griego, 70-0. Griego, not 70, 7-0. Griego, with that 7-0, though, is taking on Alejandro Moreno. Moreno has 64 fights. This will be his 65th fight on record. Want to see a prospect tested? Matthew Diamond Boy Griego is getting a test on Saturday night. Brian Mendoza, 15-0. Can he make it 16-0? John David Charles, a couple months back ago at Expo Explosion, lost to Josh Pitbull Torres. Mendoza's goal in this fight is to get it finished faster than what Pitbull did. And again, an unbelievably spectacular main event. Top-notch prospects. Sanchez can cut off the ring, can hit with power, likes to work to the body. Reese Alim, I heard, can box up everything in a room, outbox you for days and spin you in circles. A technical man's boxer coming out of that Mayweather gym. A huge night of boxing coming up on Saturday night, and again, I hope you join me out there at the Manuel Lujan Complex. Also, another boxing news and note, Angelo Leo had basically competed most of his young boxing career here in New Mexico, came back to train with the Sanchez brothers. Leo is now working out of the Mayweather gym there in Las Vegas and will be fighting here coming up in 2 weeks. So big news for Angelo Leo, a fighter that I've seen progress and grow and take steps up in his career, and it's been a joy. Can't wait to see where he continues to grow from there. Got to thank Cole Griego for joining me this week. Don't forget, next weekend, again up at Colorado Springs, you do have Rubicon 6 going on, and it almost blew right by me. King of the Cage this weekend, Minnesota, Unstoppable 2, Jamie Hinshaw looking to dethrone Melissa Carganis and become the King of the Cage women's atomweight champion. Crazy weekend behind us, a crazy busy weekend ahead of us. Oh, I love combat sports. A shout out to Mac10, that's MMA CK10 for all their support. Also, don't forget, guys, December 1st, Friday, December 1st, JacksonWink Fight Night KL1 Isleta Resort and Casino. Join us out there for what is shaping up to be a stacked night of MMA action. Support your combat sports locally, nationally, globally. This has been Caged Minds Uncensored. Thank you for listening.